Of lately, there have been a lot of incidents where people are being assaulted by those who are in power. Somewhere, a district collector assaulted a wedding party, or a poor vegetable vendor stall is kicked by a police officer. These scenes are becoming common. A question arises: is the common man helpless? Can those in power continue to oppress, suppress, and exploit the ones who gave them this power in the first place? No. We live in a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. Then why are people still being oppressed? It's simply because of lack of awareness of a person's legal rights and remedies. Hi everyone, I'm Advocate Swapna Kode, and today I would be dealing with the mechanisms which a person can resort to if a public servant assaults you. Firstly, why do we not speak out? People usually dislike going to a government office, or for that matter dealing with a public servant. It has become prejudiced in the minds of the citizens, and they don't like going to a government office or dealing with a public servant because of their laid back attitude, red tapeism, corruption in the bureaucracy, and the list goes on and on. But why do we not speak about it? Why do we not speak out about if a public servant insults you in a government office? What if the same public servant hits you? Some might object then. But why is it so? Well, mainly because we are apprehensive that it might make the situation worse and for us, and so we hold back ourselves. We must know the remedies that are available to us if a public servant hits or insults us. But before knowing the mechanism and remedies available to a person against public servant, it is important to know as what to exactly does a public servant mean in the legal language. Who is a public servant? In my earlier video, I have dealt with section 353 of the Indian Penal Code and have explained that who is a public servant. The word public servant has been defined in Indian Penal Code, and this definition is an exhaustive one. According to the provisions, following are the categories of authorities that would fall within the purview of a public servant. Every commissioned officer in the military, naval, or air forces of India, every judge, including any person empowered by law to discharge any adjudicatory functions, every officer of a court of justice, including a liquidator, receiver, or commissioner, every juryman, assessor, or member of a panchayat assisting a court of justice or public servant, every arbitrator or other people to whom any cause or matter has been referred for decision or report by any court of justice or by any other competent public authority, every person empowered to keep another in confinement, every officer whose duty is to prevent offences, give information of offences, bring offenders to justice, or protect the public health, safety, and convenience, every officer who is empowered to conduct elections. The list goes on. This section of IPC provides as to who all can be regarded within the umbrella of public servant. This means that actions can be sought against the above mentioned public officers who in any way hit you or insult you. The next question which pops up is that do we have sufficient provisions of law that can address our problem at hand? So, is there any provision in Indian law that sufficiently addresses this issue? Let us see. When a public servant fails to discharge public obligation and instead engages in certain wrongdoings which as a consequence causes injuries to a person is referred to maleficence. Example, a municipal authority appointed a new head by the name X. The manager, along with his other responsibilities, is required to sign contracts with third parties for certain social welfare projects. A, an entrepreneur, approached X for social welfare project contract which would benefit both the parties. However, X accepts to sign on the contract on the condition if A pays X a certain amount. Thus, the conduct of X in the capacity of a public servant amounts to maleficence. Similarly, in India, any wrongdoing by the public servant would amount to maleficence. However, in India, maleficence per se has not been defined anywhere, but there are certain legislations which provide for circumstances when a public servant abuses you using his authority. The 22nd chapter of IPC prescribes a punishment of 2 years of imprisonment or a fine or even both for the offense of insult. This offense is a compoundable offense as per the Criminal Procedure Code 1973. This means the offense of insult can be compounded by the person who has been insulted. Example, A, who is seeking help to file complaint in the police station, asks B, who is an officer there. B, instead of helping him, insults him in front of everyone. Due to this, A goes to the court of law since B insulted him. Since insult is a compoundable offense, B can enter into a compromising agreement with A so that the charges against him are dropped. Similarly, Indian Penal Code also lays down provisions for circumstances when you are unlawfully being hit by another. In such a situation, the person who has hit you will again be liable for punishment for imprisonment for a term extendable to 3 months or fine extendable to rupees 500 or even both. The Indian Penal Code also says that if a public servant is not acting in accordance with the way he is supposed to conduct himself or contrary to any direction of law with an intent to save the person from punishment, then such a person will be liable for punishment of imprisonment of 2 years or fine or even both. Also, if a public servant is making report contrary to law in a judicial proceeding, he will be liable for punishment of imprisonment for a term of 7 years or fine or both. As per section 166 of Indian Penal Code, a public servant who disobeys law with an intent to cause injury to another is liable to be punished with a term of 1 year of imprisonment or fine or both. So if a public servant hits you or insults you, this provision of IPC will be attracted. However, in Indian law, there is no provision which in particular makes an insult, assault or any wrongdoing by public servant as an offense. But there are few guidelines and codes of conduct for every public servant which are required to be abided by. So there are indeed a few provisions of law which address the current problem, but do these provisions cover every aspect of the problem? Do they properly address the problem we face when hit or insulted by a public officer? No, these provisions do not sufficiently address the problem we face when a public servant hits or insults you. So what do we resort to? On 6 May 2021, the Kerala High Court granted bail to lawyers arrested who were booked for assaulting a police officer while he was in court premises but was not discharging his duty. The court held that to attract an offence, the officer must be doing official duty merely because he is in uniform. The offence of assault on public servant is not attracted. What is the solution? As mentioned above, there are few provisions which make the act of hitting or insulting as an offense. So the first step one must take is reporting the act of public servant to a nearby police station by registering an FIR. By registering an FIR, the first step of legal proceeding gets initiated. Once the legal proceeding is initiated, the due process of law is followed and the rule of law prevails. One must understand that the very fact that you register an FIR makes you susceptible in another similar situation. After all, the police officer is also a public servant. In such a case, what one must do to register a FIR against police officer in a police station? But who could accept that the police officer is the one who has been charged with the offences? What if the public servant who is supposed to protect people from all the evils in the society becomes that evil? What if no one accepts the complaint? In such case, you can go to the district superintendent of police who will look into the matter and also order the registration of FIR. If police officers do not listen to you, then you go to court under section 156(3) of the Criminal Procedure Code and you can approach the nearest judicial magistrate or even approach the National Human Rights Commission or if available in your state, the State Human Rights Commission. As we can see, there are quite number of ways by which you can let the concerned authorities know about your grievances. What is State Police Complaint Authority (SPCA) and how does it work? However, if you have knocked all the above mentioned doors and still nobody answered, even then you must not give up. There is still one door left to knock, and those doors are of Police Complaints Authority. In 2006, a landmark judgment passed by the Apex Court in the case of Prakash Singh versus Union of India gave directive to all states to create Police Complaints Authority in their respective states. This was done because there was a dire need of preserving the rule of law in the functioning of the state. 18 states have complied with this directive so far. What's worse is that only a few are aware of this golden door. Since this is the state subject, every state has its own police complaint authority regulations. As per most of these SPCA regulations, following are basic functions that most of the SPCAs have in common: receive complaints against police officers who have been alleged of the wrongdoings, inquire into those allegations of misconduct, receive and inquire into complaints of non-registration of FIRs and then accordingly punish or recommend punishment to the erring officers. Now we are still to assume that there is no rule of law and that ones with power will keep oppressing the ones without power. Constitution is the supreme law of India and no one is above it. Rule of law stands as a pillar of the Indian Constitution and it cannot be taken away. No matter who you are, man or woman, poor or rich, the law will always be above you. No one is above law, not even the lawmakers or the law enforcers. Even if you're a policeman, you will be accountable before the law. So yes, if a public servant breaks the law, that person will be punished for it, just like everyone. There is no point of being apprehensive and holding back if a public servant hits you or even verbally insults you. If he has been rude, behaved inappropriately, or did not do his duty the way he should have, he can always be punished by his seniors. The state must protect the interests of its subjects. No state can work in seclusion. It must work with the people and for the people, and only then can the nation grow as a whole. So this sums up what can you do when authorities, that is the public authorities, insult or assault you. The views expressed in this video are based upon my understanding of the laws of this country and are explained in a simple manner so that common people can understand. The intention of this video is not to harm any living person or dead or to criticize any person. I hope you have liked my video. Do not forget to share the video and comment on the video. And if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, do so. See you soon. Till then, bye. See you.